right. Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Hunting Cloud. So today I'm going to start working on writing a TOML parser because, let me just go ahead and get this up real quick. So the project configuration file is in TOML. I find it a fairly easy kind of configuration file to write and to use, so that's why I'm using it. For those of you who are unaware, it's basically an INI file, but more general, like it's not just used for Windows applications, it's used for other things. Famously, it's used for Rust's configuration file, and it's pretty easy to use, so that's why I'm using it, as opposed to like something like JSON or YAML or whatnot. And the spec is fairly small, but I don't even know if I necessarily need to read the entire spec. I need to read some specific parts of the spec. Let me just real quickly get rid of that. Almost spec. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so there are, I'm guessing that's like a collection or a map or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, just fairly basic stuff. I don't need to be able to parse everything, but I do need to have a better parsing solution, because as it stands, this is what I got. Just this big old chunk of code in a loop that uses a bunch of string toke calls, which is just a really bad way to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and write an actual parser, and then we'll see where things go from there. I might actually just call it good if I can make that happen by the end of the day. Okay, so we'll do toml.hpp. Get header guards. All right. Let's see. So let's do struct toml. Okay. And that is going to need structure to hold a, oh gosh, what are they called? Make sure getting this right. Okay, I can't find specifically what how everything here works, so I'm just going to kind of wing it. Let's see, I guess we'll call those labels. So this tunnel struct is going to contain a vector of labels. So include vector. Now, a label is going to have a set of associated actually, do I need to do that? It might be better to, so I'm not totally certain how the how TOML does things typically, or how most parsers do things for this, but there's a couple of different options. So let's just go ahead and pop it down here and pretend this is a TOML file. So typically you've got some kind of label, although it doesn't have to, and then whatever key value pairs. I'll just take an example from my own here. Let's take an array. Yeah. O2. And what was the other one? -d and debug. Okay, that's enough. So I'm not sure how they typically do this. Do they put just kind of prepend? Oops. Do they just kind of prepend this this label here, and then all of the entries are just stored normally? That's certainly a possibility, and actually that seems like a fairly smart way to do this. So let's get rid of this. Struct entry, and then we'll change this to entries. Okay. Now an entry needs a name, so let's go ahead and include string there. And let's see. Also needs actually I don't need a string there. I'll leave it for now, but I don't actually need a string there because the reason you use strings is because they're resizable. That's typically how things work. Now, I don't think that I need to resize this, but for now, we'll leave it. Performance is not a huge issue here. I just kind of want to get this to work. Okay, and then we need a value. So there. Struct. Actually, that might be a union. We'll say it's a union. Value. I'm really not a fan of the fact that the color scheme for this is so similar there. I might need to change that here soon. Okay. So what are the possible values here? Let me just take a quick look at the spec. Let's see, we've got okay, so numbers are a possibility. It looks like we'll just do so we need int, more specifically a long int. So we'll say hold on, let me actually open up grab int. Change this to int 64 t, and then we also want double. I need a, let's see, probably, yeah, we'll just do this the fast way. And then what else? How do I want to do that? Because that's, I guess that would be a map in C++. Not exactly thrilled about having to use that, but kind of gonna have to. Okay, and this is going to take a string and a value. Hopefully that's okay. Hopefully that doesn't cause it to freak out. Okay, good. Freak out because it doesn't have access to map. That's fine. Okay. Included header map is not used directly. Right. What is it? I guess we'll call it collection. I think that's what you would call that. Okay. And need a vector of all of those kinds of things. So you could just std vector, then value, So this particular construction, I think, can hold everything I need. So, oh, also booleans. We need booleans. This has booleans. B. Let's call it B. Okay. So let me just kind of work through this here. So if I have this, let's say we've got doubly nested value. So let's say value and there, another there. So you would have an array here, which would store two values, and those two values would have their own discrete arrays of values, which would then be pointing to numbers. Okay, so I think this will work for everything I need. Now I need a value type. So bool. Let's see. Maybe we'll call this a list. Or let's call it a dict. Okay. And this actually will be red. Okay, so that covers all the possible values that could be stored in this value union. Okay. So, got a structure to store that. Now I just need to make an actual thing to read this. Okay. So let's start with int file, and this is going to take file name const. Okay. All right. And we'll also do to file. It's also going to take a const file name. So one will read, one will write. Very simple. All right. So let's. Yeah, I don't think I need any sort of oh gosh, what do you call it? I don't think I needed a destructor or constructor or anything like that. All this stuff is going to be built on the fly. All right. So from file. Oh, silly me. Okay. Keep forgetting I've got this. So I don't have TOML CPP. Okay. All right. So we need to file. Wish it had filled in everything. My life easier. So ideally, this is going to turn 0. Okay. Start with from file. So we need a reading loop. Actually, no, before you even do that, I need to open and access that file. So, I'm building the parser as part of the project because I'm using a TOML file for the configuration, and so I need to be able to parse. And I've written parsers before, so I don't think it'll be too terribly difficult, especially if I'm not concerned with parsing the entire spec, like just only focusing on the parts that I need. And it's not like the spec is that big, I don't think. So, all right. Oh, and read. Actually, let's go ahead and leave an error message so that people know what's up. Go. So Phaser is a build system. So I was wanting to work on some C++ projects, but then I realized that every time I do that, I will copy a make file from one of my more recent projects, and then copy all the test frameworks that I have, and a bunch of other things that's, just boilerplate busy work that I kind of do for every single project. And so I thought it would be neat to have a system where it would read a configuration file and generate a kind of default project structure that I typically use, and then from there just handle everything. So like if you've ever used Cargo, kind of like that, a bit less sophisticated, but like the basic stuff like being able to build and run projects, being able to test projects, things like that. And so I've got a TOML configuration file to help manage that. Like if I want to add libraries, I can do that, and flags for the compiler. So like if I want to add in compile flags or release flags, like for optimization, things like that. Yeah, there is apparently one that I saw. It's called Cabin, I think. Um, I looked at it and I had already started working on this before I found it, and so I've kind of decided to just continue working on it. Um, but and the one that I saw didn't really fit everything that I wanted, but it is certainly an option. So if that's kind of what you're looking for, then that going and looking at Cabin might be right up your alley. Just hold on. So if you're curious about another option that seems to be sort of similar to Cargo, in fact, more similar to Cargo than what I'm working on, then that would probably be an option. Okay, so now I need, just go ahead and do this the old-fashioned way. Okay. Okay. I'm just more familiar with it. Works better for my personal taste. My kind of personal opinion is if I can help it, I typically use C, and I don't end up using like probably half the things that C++ has. You've got like things like string and vector, which are like the just very easy to use quickly, and they're very common to know. But I typically use C idiomatic stuff often. So anyway, so that let's go ahead and do this. Okay. So we've got the buffer now. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna make a this should work. Okay. I'll make it a verb. Okay. Actually, I don't think I need index. Okay. While yes. Okay. Okay. So switch here. Okay, so first things first, do this. So if we find that, let's see, would that be parse, I guess parse label, we'll call it parse label. Yeah, it's extra stuff here, don't I? And actually, I don't know if I need to include term values. It's just going to parse stuff and then one sec here. Okay. Yeah, we'll just call these void. I don't think I actually need to return anything on these. Wait, no, wrong thing. These definitely do need to return an error value. Actually, whoop. Ooh, I didn't know you could do that. Hold on. Okay, sending buffer down. While I'm here, we'll do parse entry. And we'll stop there for a moment. So we'll go with this. Okay, so this we'll call parse label. I should probably go ahead and increment that. So break. All right, now, I think I need some kind of way to we'll do it like this. Hold on. Like I said before, I don't know exactly how TOML files are parsed in most of like the more standard parsers. But what I'm going to do is anytime I see the little kind of label at the top here, I'm just going to prepend that onto each of the following entries within that section. So, and I don't know, does putting a new line actually break a section? I don't know. That is a question. I'm just going to assume that it doesn't until you put it under a new header, or you have it under no header. If it's under no header, I guess maybe we'll call it global. I don't know. Maybe have it so that if I do this, then this all of a sudden will be kind of well, it won't be done. I won't do anything to it, but it'll just be outside of this particular section. I think that makes sense. It makes sense to do. Okay. So let's start here. Parse label. Do kind of the same basic thing here. Make sure we're not accidentally going over and let's see. Save myself a bit of trouble. So let's see, we read the label. Can labels have numbers? Does look like it. Okay. So if it's alpha, we're at 0. Just whoops. Code is alpha or because you can include periods in the entry. But it can't, I don't think it can start the period. So if it is alpha, do label Let's initialize to 0. I could and probably should actually, let's do this. Reserve. Is there a max length for labels? I need to actually read the spec, don't I? Let's start here. Okay, so it's got comments. Okay. Okay, fine. Must be valid ETFA. That's fine. Okay. I need, let's see. Okay, interesting. So it's got a bunch of different stuff here for values. I should have read this. This would be helpful. But we'll worry about that later. Okay. So keys can be anything really, but what about, where's the labels? Come on. Come on, help me out here. Okay, so those are called tables. Collections, find by header. Okay. So okay, so you can have a bunch of different stuff. Yeah, like I said, I might end up just ignoring this for the moment and basically rolling my own kind of unique version of TOML, but I don't think that's a great idea. I think that's gonna hurt me in the long run. Okay, so based on this, I'm gonna have to do some restructuring. So what I'm gonna do, we're gonna have struct table. That's going to have map keys and entry. No, hold up. Okay. So what I could do here is, so this can stay mostly the same. I do need to make some minor adjustments to this. I don't think I actually need entry. Here, just get rid of that. Okay. So here I'll have a vector of tables. And I guess I'll also have this will, I guess let's call this a map. This will be this will be global entries. So we'll just do it like this. I suppose I could also have okay, hold on. This needs to be a map. This needs to be a map because it needs to compare tables with their name. Okay, so we have global entries, we have tables. So tables are just a map. And okay. So it looks as though table can basically be anything that a label can be. Labels are, you can put them into quotes. You can put in, what's it called? periods and numbers and all sorts of things like that. So it's basically anything goes within certain kind of fairly small limitations. Okay, hang on, let me find the actual. Here we go, keys. They are quoted or dotted. What does that mean? Okay. Dotted keys are a sequence of pair or quote joined by a dot. It's grouping similar properties together. Okay. I might just ignore some of this. I don't want to, because it feels like it's a really bad idea, because some smart aleck is gonna try and put stuff in here that's, well, I'm the one putting stuff in here. I'm the smart aleck. I could just be not smart. Okay, I'm gonna try to be a bit better. Okay, so let's see. Label, is there a max size for the labels? I don't think there is. Let's see. There seems to be no indication that there is in fact a max size. Okay. Yeah, no clear indication. Okay. Yeah, so we'll reserve like 16. It's a pretty normal amount of stuff. And it does not need to start with this. So let's see. Okay. Yeah, I'm not putting all that in there. Okay, so let's do it this way. Is alpha. Actually, is I think. Let's see. Can also be a period or a dash or a whole bunch of other stuff. She didn't push out 2 tab characters. That's kind of annoying. Oh. You do underscores as well, right? Okay. That's a bit much, but appears to be necessary. Just append that. Else, if then we want to check for quotes. And let's see. I should put this into its own function, because basically all it's doing excuse me. Basically all it's doing is getting a key, because labels are key, or excuse me, tables are keys. So I'm gonna go ahead and this table, and I want let's see. parse key. Here. Actually, this doesn't need to be a... It's going to need to go there. Okay. And this can actually change, because parse entry and parse table are kind of... Well, they're slightly different. Parse entry doesn't need to be a part of this. This might not be quite how I wanted things, but we'll see. So, this table, call this key. It's always fun to come up with this kind of stuff on the fly. Okay. Just going to throw this up at the top real quick. Realize I could probably just go like literally right above, but yeah. I always forget the keybinds in Vim to go back a word. Okay. Okay, hold on. Do that. Yeah, I know the ones for like going forward. So like I think it's E and W are the ones that do they kind of either go one past or just to the edge of a word. But I can like I think B is the one that goes back, but I don't know the other one because I think there's another one. But it's not something that's kind of like a natural part of my navigation. Like, just personally. Why is it... Oh, right, because that's not a pointer. It needs to be a pointer. Okay. That needs to have equals 0. All these need to be replaced with I. Basically making a funky-looking while loop. Okay. Whoa. Whoa. Whoa, what's that? What did I do? Okay. There might not be. That may not be a thing. I suppose that's... Yeah. I'm actually not going to worry about this because this is not going to... Hold on. Actually, we'll just use a reference. Just realized I can do that. This is C++. I can use references. References are cool. I like references. Or passing by reference, I should say. Okay. That is one thing I like. There are plenty of things that I wish C had, but pass by reference is like one of those things where I just don't understand the rationale for not having it. Because my goodness, is it nice to have. And it actually even has, I think it actually also has performance benefits, because when you're passing something by value, it copies the value in C. That's fairly well known. If you pass by pointer, it doesn't copy the value, but it does copy the pointer. And I don't think that pass by reference copies the pointer. I think it just uses the original pointer to access the value, which, makes way more sense to me. Anyway, okay, so here's that. Okay, so I'm not going to touch this yet, but I want to do key. Yeah, I think it's Zig that, like, by default it passes a constant reference to whatever you're doing. They might, and that's certainly a fair point. I would still say there is some value in having the reference, like being able to pass by reference, just because when you're passing a pointer, you have to dereference that pointer every single time you use it, and you can't pass a null reference, to my knowledge. So in the cases where you are, like if you're trying to modify like an index, like what I'm doing here, this is way easier to type out than than having to do the dereferencing thing. And you also do not run the risk of passing a null pointer to a function that's not expecting it. Right, exactly. Whereas if I were doing this, if I had this could theoretically be null. It's possible. So, and like again, I don't understand why this isn't something that C has in it, like as like the base C, not C++. It seems like a no-brainer to me, especially given how often people get like null pointers when they're not expecting them. Anyway, all right, enough of that. Let's do, so yeah, we'll reserve 16 bytes for this. And basically, I'm just going to copy this. Hold on. Okay. Key. And if it's quoted, then don't think I include... I suppose I can include the quotes. I don't think there's anything that's going to hurt it if it includes quotes. Yeah. Okay. So then go into parse quotes. Let's do this. Oops. Just realized I'm writing a function definition. That's silly. Yeah, okay. Sure. I could see it. No, I understand what you mean. I can see that to an extent. The issue, though, is we're starting to see like, if you've looked at the C23 standard, like, they've added a bunch of new stuff. So it seems like they're sort of moving away from that to an extent. Maybe not, like, a lot, but I could see that being a thing that they include in later standards because, like, for example, like, they added a bunch of new attributes and things to the C standard that they didn't used to have. Um, and the other thing that could be done, I don't know if this is actually a thing, I'll have to look this up, but you have various extensions to the standard that have become more and more common over time. Like in GNU, there's the attributes that are an extension of the original C standard. So you're right that, like, the kind of classic C ISO C standards don't include them and tend to be fairly conservative with what they add to the standard itself. But it seems like there are mechanisms for at least experimenting with it, and I think it would be fruitful to try that. But yeah, that is one thing that I kind of dislike about C. Like, there's a lot of nice things that C has to offer. It's because it's so conservative with what it adds. It's very the language itself is very tight and sleek, but that does also mean that you end up with the language being so slim that you just can't do certain things, really. Yeah. Well, and I don't know if it hurt. So it does. Um, Gosh, how to put this? Well, see, for one thing, I don't know if, and I'm not criticizing you here, I'm just saying in general, I don't think that rationale makes a whole lot of sense because you are, like, there's nothing stopping C from changing the standard and just saying, if you can't compile with the standard, then don't compile with the standard. Because as it stands, fun, C already has, like, there's already incompatibilities between C and C++. Like, for example, in Linux, the X11 windowing system, there's a header for it called XKB. And it can't compile under C++ because there's a keyword, or like a name that is used for one of the members of a structure that is an actual keyword in C++. It's called explicit. So C++ is already technically incompatible with C. It is no longer just a superset. It's mostly a superset, but it's not entirely a superset. But yeah, like, part of the reason why I kind of struggle with C++ is that there's just a lot of features that I'm not particularly fond of. But in the end, it's if I'm willing to use it like basically C+, I can stand it because, one is a bit too aggressive with adding new things, and the other is too conservative with it. Right. Well, and the other thing is, like, here, I don't think there's a huge problem with that because already for C++ especially, less so for C. C typically has like if you use C99 versus C11, there are some things that they've added, like the generic keyword and some other things. But generally speaking, the expectation that C is just going to work is fairly normal. Right, yeah, that there is that benefit. But like with C++ especially, the various versions of C++ are very different in terms of, like, what you want to use. Like, the reason I'm using C++ 23, and the reason why that caused me some grief due to the my language server because it didn't default to C++23. The reason I'm using that is because it includes the print function, the std print and std print line, which are two amazing functions that I wish were in the language to begin with, but they're not. So like already C++ is not necessarily breaking compatibility. Like I think you can compile a lot of older C++ code, but the question is, why would you? Right? If you're not expecting to include the features that are featured in a newer version of C++ or C, then there's no reason to try and use a newer version. It's probably going to be a little slower, just kind of by definition. Yeah, they are. They are really amazing. Like I was like, if you don't need the reflection, the compile time reflection that C 26, C++ 26 is supposedly going to come with, then I don't think there's really any good reason to use C++ 23, because there are going to be platforms, I'm guessing, there are probably going to be platforms where that just never becomes a thing. No one ever either writes a compiler that's compatible for that platform, or there's some weird eccentricity that means that the compiler cannot, due to like resource limitations or whatnot. So already, every time you make a new version and say there are these new features, you're almost by definition going to be restricting it to some point or to some extent. So anyway, yeah, I'll get off my soapbox now. All right, let's see. So, okay, so we've got that. I need to go ahead and parse quote. Do this to the top one. Turn key. Okay. I don't see. I don't know. Can you escape the quotes that are used in here? Use line ending backslash. Oh my gosh, this is so much stuff. Let's see. Okay, we've got regular keys. I'm not seeing examples where you can backslash escape double quotes. Backslash quotes. Let's see. Hold on. Actually, there was a list there. Oh, you can. You can. Okay. Yeah, I gotta do that. Okay. Okay, you know what? Screw it. I'm not doing this. I'm going to just make it parse the very, very, very simple version that I am doing, because I do not want to deal with this. If I run into a point where I have to fix it, I will fix it later. Not dealing with this. Nope. Nuh-uh. That is a bridge too... Oh, oops. It's a bridge too far. Okay. And then... yeah, there's no quotes, so it's just going to be regular. And there's not going to be any dots that I need to worry about for this, because I don't include dots. Technically, not even technically, probably a bad idea, frankly, but I'm not going to give this. Okay, so we got a key here. That's fine. Just call this key. Actually, hold on. So, just call this key. Yeah, pick your battles. I am not picking this one. Okay, this. There's fine. Okay. So we've got the key. Need to move past the equals sign. What's this? Okay, so if I is white space, I don't think there are any tabs in mine, so I'm not going to worry about that. So if it's white space, let's do that. It's white space, we skip it. Continue. You know what? I think for loop might actually be prudent. Oops. Okay. Just do that here too. Yeah. Alright. Just ignore that. Jeez, okay. Let's see. Table equals key. Okay. So we should be getting so if buffered I is not equal, is there a case where that shouldn't be there? think so. All right, I'm just going to do that. Let's make sure. Actually, no, I can't just skip over new lines. New lines are syntactically significant. We'll just skip over that there. All right, so if is alpha, I don't think there's any case where I'm using numbers, so gonna skip that again. All right. It's gonna be an entry. Parse entry. Let's have that return an entry. It's return a value. Okay. So we get the key there, and then get value. We'll call this parse value. So, yeah, don't have that anymore. This needs to return a value. So, oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, hang on a minute here. I'll go ahead and just do this. So, let's see, entry is going to. Might stop here pretty soon. Let's see if I can make a little more progress. This is going to be entries because I need to make sure that I include the type, otherwise I will not know what that type this value is. Okay, let's see. This needs to also be entries. This needs to return. Okay. Okay. Just gonna go ahead and skip ahead 3 spots, because there's usually space between those. Okay. I think I am gonna go ahead and stop the stream for now. So, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Should be doing this again tomorrow, and hopefully by then, I'll be done with this, and I can actually move on to working on the projects that I wanted to. So,